Almost a month to go before the August 11th primary, and one of the most watched and competitive races is the DFL contest for U.S. Senate. 2 weeks ago, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan was a guest on this show. Earlier this morning, I spoke with Congresswoman Angie Craig. And Representative Craig joins us now. Thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it.
It's great to be back.
I do want to ask you that there was a very unexpected passing in Washington, the loss of Senator Lindsey Graham. Your thoughts and comments on the senator's passing?
Well, look, my heart goes out to his family, absolutely, of course. Over the years, what I would say about the senator is I was disappointed that he became such a Trump acolyte, but he was probably also one of the few people that at times would take an alternative view with Donald Trump. He just returned from the Ukraine, where he obviously wanted America to continue to support the Ukraine against Russia, and he really supported the NATO alliance. And you know, I think that that was a voice in the president's ear. My colleagues have really been spineless, Republican colleagues spineless to stand up for their principles. And, you know, Lindsey, while I didn't agree with everything, he certainly wasn't afraid to tell the president what he thought when it came to the NATO alliance in Ukraine, and I appreciate that.
Let me ask you, how close is this race right now? Where are you?
It's going to be a close race in the Democratic primary. The external polling, KSTP, has me up 5 percentage points, and it's going to be a close one. So,
well, the DLGA, which is the Democratic Lieutenant Governors Association, which is the organization that Peggy Flanagan headed up, has her up, and I know some internal polls are sort of all over the place, so it really does seem to be that close.
I think it is going to be a very close race, and I think that what you have is you have 2 elected leaders who are very popular with Democratic voters.
That
and
is
they're
true.
having a tough choice. They're having a tough choice. And, you know, I've been making the case that I've got the experience to, on day one, take on the Trump administration, but also the background of being able to get things done.
You know, I think that's a really interesting point, because I think a lot of people feel that way, that these are 2 candidates that are qualified and good and smart and capable, 2 women that a lot of people look to. So I think it is a difficult choice for a lot of people. I want to ask you about, I know a lot has been said about your vote for the Lake and Riley Act, which you said that you regret now. What are people saying to you? Are they asking you about that on the campaign trail? What are they asking you, or what are they telling you about your decision, saying that you now regret it?
Well, I think it's appropriate to ask me that question, but they're also asking me what are my views on immigration, and I'm happy to talk about that. I've been a longtime supporter of the DREAM Act in Washington to allow our dreamers to become American citizens, to put them on that path. Undocumented individuals who have been here and obeyed the law and paid their taxes, to put them on a path toward documentation in this country. So a strong advocate for our immigrant neighbors. But the vote that the Lieutenant Governor keeps talking about in a very disingenuous way, talking about it from the perspective of, we know that Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota, the Trump administration, they were not complying with any laws in the operation. And certainly it wasn't about detaining or deporting folks who had committed a crime. So, strong supporter of
well, they seem to be
reform.
deporting. The problem was that they didn't have, Minnesota has a very low percentage of people who are undocumented, much less who are criminals as well. So that they had these quotas, and they were going after, they were having to fill the quotas with people who were, you know, not at all criminals.
That's exactly right. They were coming after our black and brown neighbors in Minnesota, and in particularly, they continue to attack our Somali neighbors, which is just egregious on their part. And that's why I've been so active in introducing articles of impeachment against Kristi Noem when she was in that position. And it's why I have not funded any appropriations bills that would fund this agency. Until they reform themselves, I will not.
Okay. You were also the only Minnesota Democrat, I believe, to vote for the Genius Act. Tell me about why you voted for it. This is the act that created a framework, a regulatory framework for cryptocurrency, stable coins. And a lot of people, critics say it's allowed President Trump to make $1 billion in the first year of his tenure this term.
Well, I voted to put guardrails around crypto. 55 million Americans are trading this platform. There's another bill in the Congress right now that I don't think is going to get through, particularly because of the ethics concerns with the president. I've also introduced legislation. It's called the Presidential Accountability Act, that not just for crypto, but especially for this action on the part of this president, would force him to put his business interest into a blind trust as president, and also would force that blind trust to sell his business interest. This is the most corrupt administration in American history. And as someone who chairs the Ag Committee, ranking member, we will have a chair as soon as we win the majority back. The CFTC is under the jurisdiction of that particular committee. So guardrails on these industries, I don't know that anyone could argue that they aren't necessary at this moment in time. All
right, well, Angie Craig, thank you so much for coming by. 4 weeks left. A lot of questions about turnout. We don't know what kind of turnout there will be. I assume that you want as many people to turn out as possible.
As many people as possible. August 11th.
August 11th. Turnout usually varies between 12 and about 20.